Halloween month is upon us, and I thought long and hard about what games I wanted to talk about this month and which ones I thought fit the theme of Halloween. Then I remembered one of the most terrifying games that doesn't just have one spider section, but two spider sections. Along with that, it encapsulates one of the greatest fears known to mankind. Failure. Bloodborne. A game made by From Software. Out of all the Soulsborne games that From Software has made, I would say that this one is my favourite. I'm more preferable to the dodge mechanic rather than the block mechanic, and also a huge fan of the recovery system that isn't in the other games. The recovery system's rather simple. Whenever you take damage, you have a short period of time to be able to recover some of your health by hitting enemies. This helps you get into the mindset of playing more aggressively rather than defensively, which is what the past Soul titles were all about. And this time around we get to explore the Victorian streets of Yharnam, a cult-infested town full of werewolves and other kind of atrocities. Or that's what you're led to believe. The more you explore Yharnam, the more bosses you encounter, then the more insight you will accumulate, which in turn allows you to see things that otherwise would not have been apparent to you before. That was always there from the start. Like huge monsters hanging off buildings.
Dude, how long have you been standing there?
An hour.
An hour?
This is when the game takes a big turn and stops feeling like something from a Van Helsing story and something more from a H.P. Lovecraft novel, which is clearly something that this game seeked inspiration from. But it's not the great underlying story that we play these games for, it's the bosses. Bosses for From Software games is like Stealth and Metal Gear Solid games, it just wouldn't be the same without it. And just like its other Souls brethrens, this game is full of memorable bosses like the werewolf boss, and the werewolf boss, and the werewolf boss, the werewolf boss. Oh, and Father Gascoigne. Oh wait, no, he's a werewolf now. And of course I beat every single boss first time with no deaths because, you know, I wouldn't admit that I ever died in this game because I don't want the Dark Souls community to find out.
Okay, don't make any sudden moves.
Okay, good. It took me 3 playthroughs altogether to get the Platinum Trophy, mainly due to there being different endings. The first playthrough was my blind run where I took things at my own pace and chose the ending where you get to fight Gurman. I then proceeded through with my second run on New Game Plus where I found all the collectibles needed for trophies, including all the hunter tools and weapons, and fought all the optional bosses. Now I was at this point looking through the trophy list, I saw one for the Queen of Yharnam. Shamefully, I have no footage of that fight, so here's me just looking at her before you fight Murgo's wet nurse. Anyway, the only way to actually fight her is to go through the long list of Chalice Dungeons which start you off feeling super overpowered fighting low level enemies, but soon enough ramps up the difficulty in the last few dungeons with bosses that can kick your ass into submission. The Chalice Dungeons were the things that I found the biggest pain in the ass, not just because of the difficulty, but because you have to farm ingredients to activate the chalices in the first place, which can be a bit of a grind since there's no guarantee if any of the enemies or chests drop the ingredients that you need. So you'll find yourself replaying a lot of the dungeons just to be able to have enough ingredients to move on to the next one. Anyway, back to the playthroughs. Once I finished the optional bosses, including the Queen of Yharnam, I had to find the 3 umbilical cords.
What?
The 3 umbilical cords? You know, so I can eat them, so when the Moon Presence tries to devour me, I can break out of his trance and fight him until unlock the second ending. Moving on. Once I beat the surprisingly easy final boss, I went into my third and last run where I attempted to get through the game as fast as possible in the fewest amount of bosses. And it was this run that made me realise just how short the actual game is. I find it worth noting that whenever you start a New Game Plus you keep all your previous stats and weapons from your previous playthrough, while enemies only get a slight buff, making the game a whole lot easier to get through. My most recent run I did to get the footage for this video only took me 2.5 hours from the start of the game right to the end, and that was including some of the optional areas. So you can imagine how much faster it was when I ignored all the optional bosses and powered through the main path, and since the last ending involved me not having to fight Gurman at all, it made my final playthrough that much quicker. As I said before, this is my favourite game from the Soulsborne series, with Dark Souls 3 being a close second, so if you want to try out any of the games, I could definitely recommend this being your starting point as it's the easiest story to follow and the combat is more polished than stuff that you'll see in the previous games. Also, Bloodborne has been announced as being part of the PlayStation Plus collection for the PS5, so if you don't feel like buying the game straight out, then you can just wait and check it out on that. And as far as getting the Platinum Trophy goes, this is also the most easiest of the Soulsborne games to Platinum with the highest completion percentage out of the whole series. So if you wanted to get any of them, this might be the one to get. The only part I really struggled on was that some of the bosses in the Chalice Dungeons were really tough, but after you finish that, the rest of the trophies are a breeze. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.